dear learners, myself Bhavani Pentela, working as an assistant professor in Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Pharmacy Institute, Greater Noida. So, today I am here to discuss about the anatomy and physiology of a respiratory system, which comes under human anatomy and physiology with a subject 2 with the subject code BP201T. So, without any further delay, we will move into the class. So, let me see the organs of a respiratory system. So, what you will see here before going with the respiratory system, in this session we are going to cover the anatomy of anatomy and physiology of a respiratory system. So, what are the organs will falls under the respiratory system? Here you will see about the nose, mouth. So, let us see here. So, what are the organs forms here? Nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchus and finally bronchial. So, if you see here, you can identify the nose, and below the nose you can see the pharynx, which you can call as a throat. You can call it as a throat also, and next one is larynx, which you can call as a voice box, and trachea, which you can call as a windpipe, and finally bronchus and bronchiole, and you having the two lungs, right. So, this is the organs which you see on the respiratory system: nose, mouth, pharynx, larynx, trachea, two bronchi, large airway, and bronchiole, small airway, and you having the two lungs. So, we will discuss one by one here. So, first we will go with the nose and nasal cavity. So, first we will see about the structure of a nose, and we will see the function of a nose. So, if I am talking about the structure of a nose, anteriorly the structure, if I am talking about the structure, anteriorly the nose consists of a hyaline cartilage, and if I am talking about a roof, the roof is formed by the ethmoid bone. So, if you are talking about the roof of a nose, it is formed by a bone which you can call as an ethmoid bone, and the floor which is formed by the roof of a mouth. So, if I am talking about the nose, and if nose, what about the floor of a nose? It is the roof of a mouth. So, if I am talking about the nose, the mouth will be come somewhat down part of a nose, right. So, the roof, so the floor of a nose will be formed by the roof of a mouth. The medial wall will be formed by the spectrum, and lateral wall is formed by the maxilla, and air can be entered through the nares, which you can call as a nostrils. Inside the nose, it consists of a nasal cavity. So, maybe I am talking about inside the nose, which consists of a nasal cavity, which I will discuss in the coming slides. So, this is about the structure of a nose. Anteriorly, what the cartilage will be present? Hyaline cartilage, and roof which is made up of an ethmoid bone, and the floor which is made which is formed by the roof of a mouth, and medial wall is formed by the spectrum, and lateral wall is formed by the maxilla, and the air which will be entered through the nostrils, and the nose, inside the nose, which consists of a nasal cavity. And what is the main function of a nose? You know that the main function of a nose is air conditioning, or what is the main purpose? What is the main function of a nose? You will take the respiration, inspiration, expiration. So, the respiration is the main function for a nose. Olfaction, you can smell, you can see, you can sense the smell by the nose, right. Protection of a lower airway, you can protect the lower airway. You are filtering and cleaning, the nose can filter and clean, right, from the dust particles. The nasal reflex function, it having the vocal resonance, right. These are all the functions of a nose. And next we will see the anatomy of a nasal cavity. So, the nasal cavity is the most superior part of a respiratory tract. So, if I am talking about the respiratory tract, the nasal cavity is a most superior part. It will present on the superior region of a respiratory tract, and from where it will be get extend. So, if I am talking about it, just see the picture here. So, this is a nose which will be extend from the vestibule to the nasopharynx, right. So, where if I am talking about the anatomy of a nasal cavity, it extends from the vestibule of the nose to the nasopharynx. So, nasal cavity will be extend from the vestibule to the nasopharynx. So, what are the three divisions? What are the three main divisions of any nasal cavity? So, if you see here, these are the three major divisions. One is vestibule, right? and second one is olfactory region, which you can see in a blue, the blue which has been represented in the blue, which is present on the apex of any nasal cavity, right. And this one jo brown in color, which you can call as any respiratory region. Okay. So, it has been divided into 3 phases. One is vestibule, second one is olfactory region, and third one is respiratory region. So, here the nasal cavity, which is present on the superior part of any respiratory tract and which will be extend from the vestibule to the nasal pharynx. And what are the main 3 divisions of this nasal cavity? The first one is vestibule, second one is olfactory region, and third one is respiratory region. These are the main 3 divisions of any nasal cavity. And if I am talking about coccus, the nasal cavity consists of 3 cocci. One is on inferior, middle, and superior. The main function of this cocci is to increase the surface area of any nasal cavity. So, what it will do, what this concave will do, this concave will increases the surface area of any nasal cavity. And next we will discuss about the paranasal sinuses. So, what about this? These are the air filled extensions of any nasal cavity. So, if I am talking about the nasal cavity, so what about this is somewhat extended, this was somewhat air filled extension of any nasal cavity. And here you will see the 4 paired sinuses, which are named according to the region where they had been located. So, we are having the 4 bones of an paranasal sinuses. First one is frontal bone, second one is ethmoid bone, third one is maxillary bone, and finally was a sphenoid bone. So, let us see the location. Depending upon the location where the bone has been located, according to that it has we having the 4 paired sinuses, right. So, this one jo upper part on forehead, you can see the frontal sinuses, which is present on the forehead region, and this one at the middle of an here you can see the ethmoid sinuses, and here this is an maxillary sinuses, this one is an maxillary sinuses, right. And you can see this one like an mango shape in structure, which you can call as an sphenoid sinus. So, you having the more 4 paired sinuses, which are named as frontal bone, ethmoid bone, maxillary bone, and sphenoid bone. So, what is the main function of an paranasal sinuses? So, what is how it works, and what the main function, what is the role which are going to play in our body? So, it will light the weight of an skull, it will decreases the weight of an skull, and it will support the immunodefense of the nasal cavity, and it will give the humidification of an inspired air, and it will increases the resonance of an voice. So, these are all the functions of any paranasal sinuses. So, in paranasal sinus we had discussed about the bones depending upon their location, and we had discussed about the functions. So, what are the most important functions of an paranasal sinuses? It will reduces the weight of an skull, it will lighten the weight of an skull, and it will give the supporting immunity defense to the nasal cavity, and humidifying inspired it will humidify the inspired air. So, whatever the inspiration you had taken, it will be the humidifying of inspiring air is the one of the most important function for the paranasal sinuses, and finally, it will give the resonance of voice, it will increase the resonances of voice. And next one, pharynx. So, pharynx which you can call as a throat, right, pharynx which you can call as a throat, which is in a part of a throat that is behind. So, where the pharynx is present, it is present behind the mouth, it is present backside of a mouth. So, look at the structure here. So, this is a pharynx, this is a mouth, right, this is a nose, this is a mouth, and the pharynx is present behind the mouth. So, where the pharynx has been located here, the pharynx has been located behind the mouth, right, which is present backside of any mouth. And nasal cavity. So, it is present behind the nasal cavity and mouth, right, and which is present above the esophagus and larynx. So, if I am talking about the pharynx, and after the pharynx the larynx will be get started, esophagus, trachea, and it is present where the pharynx has been located, the pharynx has been located upper side of any esophagus and larynx behind the nasal cavity and mouth. Clear? So, here the pharynx, which you can call as a throat, which is a part of a throat, and pharynx which is present behind the nasal cavity and mouth, and it is present above the esophagus and larynx, right. So, it is present behind, which is present the back side of a nasal cavity and mouth, and which is present above the larynx and esophagus. So, if I am talking about this pharynx, it is somewhat 5 centimeters in length, right, and it consists of mainly and this pharynx has been divided into mainly 3 divisions. So, what are the main 3 divisions of a pharynx? Nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx, and the laryngopharynx which you can call as a hypopharynx also. Okay. So, this is the pharynx, students, you can see here. So, this is about the pharynx part which is present behind the nasal cavity, right, and what are the main 3 divisions of this pharynx? Nasopharynx, oropharynx and hypopharynx, which you can call as a laryngopharynx. So, nasopharynx is in a part of a throat located behind the nasal cavity. So, let us look just see here the nasopharynx, where it is located? It is located behind the nasal cavity. So, this is a nasal cavity. So, where the nasopharynx has located? Nasopharynx has been located behind the nasal cavity. And what about the oropharynx? Oropharynx is in middle part behind the oral cavity. Look at here, this is an oral, this is a nasal cavity, this is an oral cavity, and oropharynx has been located behind the oral cavity. Nasopharynx has been located behind the nasal cavity, nasal, right, and oral, oro. So, you can remember in such a way. So, nasal, if I am talking about the first division of a pharynx, which is a nasopharynx, which is located behind the nasal cavity, and second one is oropharynx, which is located behind the oral cavity. It is in a middle part of a pharynx, and last part of a pharynx was the laryngopharynx, which you can call as a hypopharynx as well, which is present behind the larynx. So, what is a larynx? You can call as a larynx as a voice box also, which is present behind the larynx. So, you have to remember here nasal cavity, oral cavity and larynx, and these 3 portions of a pharynx will be located behind to the particular cavities. Okay. So, this is about the pharynx. So, pharynx, it is a very important part on the throat, and which is located behind the nasal cavity and mouth, and which is present upper portion of an esophagus, which has been divided into main 3 divisions. One is nasopharynx, second one is oropharynx, which is in a middle portion, and finally was a hypopharynx, which you can call as a laryngopharynx, which is in a down portion of an pharynx, which is down portion of an pharynx. So, if I am talking about the nasal pharynx, which is present behind, the nasal cavity, oropharynx, which is present behind the oral cavity, and hypopharynx, which is present behind the larynx. And next we will discuss about the structure of a pharynx. We will discuss what the blood supply is going to the pharynx, and what is the nerve supply, and what is the functions of a pharynx. So, what is the structure of a pharynx? It consists of 3 layers. What are the 3 layers? Mucous membrane lining, second one is fibrous, and third one is smooth muscle. So, what are the 3 layers of the structure you can see on the pharynx? First one is mucous membrane lining, second one is the fibrous tissue, and the third one you can see the smooth muscle. Okay, these are the layers, these are the most important 3 layers on the structure of pharynx. And what is the blood supply here? The facial artery. So, what the blood supply you see at the pharynx? Facial artery, facial vein, internal jugular vein. So, what is the nerve is going to supply here? Vagus nerve, and second one is glossopharyngeal nerve. So, these are the 2 nerves which will supply to the pharynx. One is vagus nerve and second one is glossopharyngeal nerve. And what is the main function for the pharynx? So, a pathway of air and food. So, it is a passage. It is a passage of an air and food, and it will warm. It will warm and humidifying, it will protect from the dust particles, and it will place an important role in the speech. So, these are all the most important functions of an pharynx. So, by this slide we had learned about the structure, and what is the nerve supply, and what are the blood supply, and what is the main function of an pharynx. And now we will move with the next one, larynx. So, larynx, the larynx is present below the pharynx. It means after the pharynx, the next part of a respiratory system was larynx, which you can call as a voice box also. The larynx, which you can call as a voice box also. If you see about the structure here, you can see the green in color. The green in color, which you can call as an epiglottis. You can see the diagram here, which they had represent in the green color, which you can call as an epiglottis, and the brown in color, which you can call as an thyroid cartilage, and blue in color you can call as an erythenoid cartilage, and the yellow one you can call as an cricoid cartilage. Okay, so if I am talking about, so you can see this small purple in shape colors, these are called as an corniculate cartilage. Okay. So you can see the one epiglottis and one thyroid cartilage, right, and two erythenoid cartilage and one cricoid cartilage. So if I am talking about the structure, it consists of several irregular shape. If you see the structure here, it having several irregular shape. You can see this is in one shape, this is in one shape, this is in another shape, this is in another shape, right. So it having the very irregular shape cartilages attached to each other, right. So you having one epiglottis, upper one, which is in a green color, and second one you can see the thyroid cartilage, which is in brown color, and third one is erythenoid cartilages. You having the two erythenoid cartilages and one cricoid cartilages. And what is the main function of larynx? It will produce the sound, it will helps in speech, it will passes the air, it will humidify the air, it will filter the air, it will warm, it will use the warming, and it will protect the lower respiratory tract. So these are all the functions of an larynx. So larynx, if I am talking about the structure of an larynx, it having the irregular shapes, and which is composed of four cartilages. What are the four cartilages here? One is epiglottis, second one is thyroid cartilage, erythenoid cartilage, and cricoid cartilage. And what is the main important functions of larynx? The larynx you can call as a voice box also, which is important to produce the sound, which is helps in speech, which will protect the lower respiratory tract. The larynx will protect the lower respiratory tract, and it will humidify the air, it will passes the air, and it will filter the air, and it will warm the air. Okay. And next one we will go with the trachea. So the next part of a respiratory tract was trachea. So this, if I am talking about the structure, it is composed of three layers. It composed of three tissues. What are the three tissues? Fibrous and elastic tissue, smooth muscle, and ciliated columnar epithelium. So these are the structures of trachea. So it consists of, it is composed of the three layers. One is fibrous elastic tissue, and second one is composed of a smooth muscle tissue, and third one it is composed of an epithelium, ciliated columnar epithelium. So what is the blood supply? You can see on the trachea, inferior thyroid artery and bronchial artery. So the bronchial artery and inferior thyroid artery will supply the blood, right. And next, what is the nerve supply you will see to the trachea? The laryngeal nerve. The laryngeal nerve is a nerve which will supply the the nerve supply of the trachea was laryngeal nerve. And what is the venous drainage here? The inferior thyroid veins. The inferior thyroid veins will use the venous drainage. And what is the main function of trachea? It will support. It will use the support, and it will helps in cough reflex, it will filter the air, warming and humidifying. So almost all the parts of any respiratory tract having the similar functions to each other. So as like a larynx, the trachea also helps in filtering the air, it helps in warming and humidifying, and the most important function was cough reflex. The trachea will cause the cough reflex. And next one is mucociliary, and the most important function was the mucociliary excavator, and it will give the support and patency, right. These are all the functions of any trachea. Okay. Next we will discuss about the bronchi and bronchioles. So what about the bronchi and bronchioles? So here we having the right bronchus and left bronchus. So if you see about the structure here, so if you see structure here, it is in a normal bronchial. So this is in a normal bronchial, and you can see the difference between these two bronchioles. This is in a normal one, and this is in a pneumonia bronchial, which is filled with an acclimation. You can see here, you can see some acclimation here. So this is an acclimation, right. This is a pneumonia caused by an accumulation of fluid in the alveoli. Inside the alveoli you will see the accumulation, right. Inside the alveoli you will see the accumulation. So, this is by this diagram you can identify the difference of a normal alveoli and the inflamed alveoli. It means the filling, accumulation of any fluid inside the alveoli. Okay. So, if I am talking about the bronchi and bronchioles, we having the two bronchus, one is right bronchus and second one is the left bronchus, right. If I am talking about the right bronchus, it is a wider, shorter and more vertical. So, if I am talking about the right, so the bronchus having the two bronchus, right bronchus and left bronchus. Right bronchus is somewhat wider and it is shorter and more vertical than that of a left bronchial. And if I am talking about the length of a right bronchus, it is about 2.5 centimeters. And after entering into the right lung, the right bronchial will enter into the right lung, right, and left bronchial will enter into the left lung. And if I am talking about this right bronchus, after entering into the right lung, it is divided into three branches, one to each lobe. It is divided into three branches. And next one is the left bronchus. It is somewhat narrow because the right bronchus was wider, right. Right bronchus was somewhat wider and left bronchus was somewhat narrow than that of a right bronchus. And if I am talking about the length, compared to that right bronchus, the left bronchus length was very more, and this is the reason why I had said it is a short, right. Right bronchus is short, it is only 2.5 centimeters and left bronchus is about 5 centimeters. So, it is long compared to that of a right bronchus. After entering the left bronchus into the lung, it will be divided into two branches. So, this is about the bronchi and bronchioles. So, here we discussed about the right bronchus and left bronchus, and right bronchus will be entered into the right lung and left bronchus will be entered into the left lung, and right bronchus has been divided into three branches and left bronchus will be divided into two branches. If I am talking about here, see here, if you see here, it having the wider in structure and it having the shorter and the more vertical in shape, right. And if I am talking about this left bronchus, it is somewhat narrow compared to that of any right bronchus, and it is somewhat longer and which consists of 5 centimeters in length. And we will discuss about the next one, bronchi and bronchus, and here what is the main divisions of an bronchus and bronchus. So, first if we see about the division of an bronchial, it has been divided into the bronchioles, and after division of an bronchioles, it is further divided into the terminal bronchioles, and after terminal bronchioles, which will be consists of an respiratory bronchioles, and finally alveolar ducts, and finally alveoli. And what is the main function of this bronchi and bronchioles? It will control the air entry. What the drug will what the part will do here? It will control the entry of any air, cough reflex and removal of a particular matter. So, if you are having any particular matter, if you are having any dust particles, it will remove the dust particles by here, and it will humidify and warming the it will humidify or it will warms here. And what is the blood supply? You can see here bronchial arteries, and the venous drainage was in bronchial vein. And what is the nerve supply? You will see here the nerve supply was a vagus nerve, and the lymph drainage was a thoracic duct. So, this is about the bronchi and bronchioles. We had discussed about what about the right bronchial and what about the left bronchial, and how it will enter into the lung and how many branches has been seen with this bronchus. And next we will discuss about the lungs, and the lungs is the most important part in the respiratory tract, which having the two lungs in the human being, and one lying on the each other and having an apex, base, costal surface and medial surface. So, if I am talking about the lobes, we are having the 3 lobes in the right lung and the 2 lobes on the left lung. So, the lungs having the 3 lobes on the right lung and which having the 2 lobes in the left lung, and these lobes has been separated by the fissures. And if I am talking about the weight, it is approximately 600 to 700 grams, and it is length about approximately 20 to 24 centimeters. So, length, how much length of the lung will be depend upon the person, and it is approximately 20 to 24 centimeter, and the color of lung was pinkish and the shape was cone shape. And what is the blood supply? You can see with here the pulmonary artery supplying the lung, and the 2 pulmonary veins will be drying the lungs. right. And next we will see about the right lung and left lung and what is the main functions of any lung. The right lung has been more lobes. Why you are saying the right lung having the more lobes? It consists of any 3 lobes, and while the left lung having the 2 lobes, right. And what are the 3 main lobes of any right lung, which you can divided into 3 lobes, which you can named as an upper lobe, and second one is middle lobe, and third one is lower lobe. And lower lobe you can call as an inferior lobe, and upper lobe you can call as an superior lobe. Right here you just see here, if I am talking about a right lung, it consists of any 3 lobes. Compared to that of a left lobe, it consists of more lobes, somewhat in one in more in number, right. It having 3 lobes, one is upper, second one is middle, and third one is lower, and this will be separated by the phases. What the phases it will be separated? One is from oblique and second one is horizontal phases. Oblique phases will be separate the middle and lower. So, oblique phaser, what it will do here? It will separate the middle and lower lung, and the horizontal phaser will separate the middle and upper lobe. And what about the left lung? Left lung consists of 2 lobes, upper lobe and lower lobe. There will be no middle lobe in the left lung, and it will be separated by the oblique phases. Okay. And what is the main function here? It will control the air entry and warming, humidifying. Okay. It will remove the particulate matter and cough reflex. And these are the main functions of an respiratory system. And we will go with the control of respiration. The control of respiration has been divided into the central control and respiratory control. And if I am talking about the central control, it is further divided into dorsal medullary respiratory neurons, ventral medullary respiratory neurons, and finally, if I am talking about the respiratory muscles, which you can see the inspiratory muscles and expiratory. So, these are the inspiratory, external intercostal, accessory muscles, diaphragm, abdominal muscle, intercostal muscle comes under the expiration. So, which we will discuss this part in the next coming lecture. Thank you so much.